Adam Cleary here for Trek Culture, back in everybody's favourite long-running dolphin-based series. And I'm talking really fast because before we start, I just have to get something out of the way. I have to address the giant falcon in the room. I cannot say it. I can't do the word. I can't say it. This video is going to be very difficult for me. What word, Adam? It's a bit weird thing to say, given that you do with words every single day as a career. The name of the Romulan Warbird, the class of ship, D'deridex-class I can never say it. I can't say it consistently. I can't say it correctly. I can't say it accurately. I've got the fear. Because I know what it's like, you get things wrong on the internet and someone's like, oh my god, as if he pronounces it D'deridex when it's actually D'deridex-class. And life's too short, man. I'm in my 30s now. I just can't be bothered with the hassle. So I'm getting this out of the way. I can't say the name. I'm really sorry. I'm going to get the name wrong. We've just got to deal with it. But that's fine. That's the small caveat I entered into the bargain. And the bargain is that you get to learn 10 amazing facts about a Star Trek vessel that you didn't already know. Because as we always do in this series, Paul, your hero and mine, he delves into the stories, the technical manuals, the behind the scenes stuff to find interesting factoids, spit there, about these ships. So, with that caveat in place, and you all knowing the rules, the Romulan Warbird, one of the most iconic ships in the entire history of the franchise. It was probably the second most iconic ship in all of the Next Generation. Debatably, some of you would say the Borg Cube, some of you would say the Bird of Prey, some of you might even just say, I don't know, shuttlecraft to be difficult, I don't know, but I think the Warbird was easily, next to the Enterprise D, the most iconic ship in that show. And as is fitting with the Romulans, not much detail is given during the actual show itself, but it's been around for so long and so much done about it that there has been loads of stuff published which tells us little bits more and little behind the scene things which tells us little bits more still. So, before I burst the blood vessel in my head, my name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 things you didn't know about the Romulan Warbird that you need to know. I've done the title wrong. Oh, before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. Here is a statistic for you. That's genuinely true. So few of you are actually subscribers to the channel, and yes, it is a broad church. We welcome everybody in. If you would like to subscribe, that's absolutely fine. If you don't want to, hey, it's your life. But the more of you that subscribe to videos, the bigger the channel's gonna get, the more fun stuff we can do. So consider it. If you're in the large majority of people who are not subscribers to this channel who are watching this video, why not stay a while? We do stuff like this all the time. Number 10, Axis of Evil. Now, after being part of the design team for the Enterprise D and also doing a load of other cool stuff like the Ferengi Marauder, Andrew Probert, his last job on the show was to design the Romulan Warbird. And he thought, you know what it is? All Star Trek ships kind of look the same. Front bit, nice flat, two things at the side. I'm going to change this up. And that's because Gene Roddenberry had dictated that ships in Star Trek, the way they use warp fields, the way they use warp core, the way they travel, is basically that you have a bridge, a central section, and two basically warp generators, whatever kind you want to call them, working in tandem. But he never said what axis they had to be on. They were always vertical in the show. If you think about the placement of the nacelles and the birds of prey and everything else, they're always vertical. So Andrew thought, what if I just flip this up? I mean, he says himself, I didn't have any information except that the Romulans were coming back and that we had never seen their ship before. Since the Enterprise is so horizontal, I wanted to contrast it with a vertical ship. And I actually think that looks incredible. I think it looks really, really interesting. And the producers saw it and they went, hey, that looks really nice. You're gonna have to put that back the right way around, but it looks really nice. And he did, and then he left the show, and that actually might seem like a very short legacy to have, but pretty good, in my opinion. It's more than I've done. Number 9, plots and schemes. Once it settled on design, actually building the thing was pretty straightforward. They did some vacuum sealing on foam, gave it this green wash, and did one effect shot for it, which got recycled and recycled across the first 2 seasons. But then finally in season 3, in the Defector, they started doing loads of proper mock-ups with it, with a much better model and a little bit of computer effects. But one change they did make was the color. It was this bright, vibrant green in the first 2 seasons, and they thought that's fun, but does look a bit silly, so they muted it down. It's closer to like a bluish, emeraldy grey now. They dubbed this the B-type D'deridex Romulan Warbird, and it's kind of actually a baffling decision that they did all this, because they added a few extra lights and stuff. They put some stuff in the front, some stuff in the back. They trimmed out the warp nacelles a bit as well, which is alright, fine. You want to give it a bit of a redesign, a bit of a refresh? Cool. It's your life, I suppose. But they also then started intercutting it with footage from the original 2 seasons, which is a different ship that looks quite different and was designed slightly differently. So it's a bit, if you watch The Next Generation from season 3 onwards, there's occasionally some really inconsistent shots of Warbirds. And in fact, it did that the whole way through the Next Generation. The marketing was inconsistent, the toys were inconsistent. It wasn't until they got into Deep Space Nine that they were like, right, we have to do all new effects work for it for this show, so that is just the grey version, that's the proper version, there is no more green version, forget it ever existed. Number 8, alternative energy. Small little technical factoid for you here. Pretty much every ship, every federation, every organization, everything in Star Trek, every federation, very good, uses a dilithium-based warp drive. We know that the Borg use transwarp, but everybody else, they mine dilithium crystals and they use it to power warp drives. Well, almost all of them, except the Romulans. Which, before we go on, should have meant that they were completely immune from the whole thing that happened in Discovery, because they didn't use dilithium crystals in their warp drive. So if all the dilithium crystals in the galaxy exploded and blew up all these ships, they should have just been stood there going, normal? According to the Next Generation episodes Face of the Enemy and Timescape, as well as Deep Space Nine's The Visionary, Romulan Warbirds were powered by a forced quantum singularity. Kind of getting rid of the whole traditional matter-antimatter reaction thing and instead focusing the power of a tiny black hole to propel their ships through space, which is, when you say it out loud, incredibly cool. And this plays into the whole cloaking device as well, because these are small singularities, they're kept in complete perfect balance, they don't really have wasted energy one way or the other, so when they are cloaked, there's no big energy spikes as they power their engines and things like that. It all makes sense when you put it together. But then, of course, I say it was very good. Obviously, it's a plot point in episodes because it makes these temporal distortions with chronoton, etc. and whatnot. So they weren't perfect, let's just say, but in the balance of things, couple of little trips through time or things getting reset or people getting made invisible. One side, yes, every single ship in the galaxy exploding because of a dilithium chain reaction thing. Quite worse. Number 7, impulse omissions. Alright, so credit where it's due, Star Trek takes this stuff incredibly seriously and has all designs for all of its ships be as realistic as possible. They must all feature propulsion systems, they must all feature a visible bridge, windows, lights, little spaces for docking, little spaces for escape pods, all the stuff that would need to be on that ship. They used to pride themselves on putting on the physical model. Almost. Fortunately, due to the rather accelerated pace of the design stage of the Next Generation, they got the Romulan Warbird looking lovely with its bright green this and its throbbing that and its big hook bird face thing here and there, but they forgot to put any impulse engines on it, and then they kind of like settled on the design without them. So it never got them. Again, Probert, who worked on the design of the ship, said that it was supposed to have them. There was supposed to be this vertical strip wedged into the back, which would have had a row of green lights across the very extreme back edge, the tailbone of the ship, but they didn't have time for that, so they didn't do it. There was also supposed to be a big shuttle bay door that's at the very top and at the back, as well as a big window for the bridge as well, which was supposed to be at the front and also at the top, but they just didn't have time for those either, so they also fell by the wayside. Interestingly, the primary disruptor array on the front, that was originally supposed to be the deflector dish, but again, they didn't have time. Number 6, the old recycled Starship. Here it is, everybody's favorite entry in all these videos where we point at something you like and go, guess where else they used that? Now, yes, we do normally just do that with sets, but we're doing it with ships now. They reuse the ships. Now, I think, unless I'm wrong, we've talked about the Torellian ship loads and loads and loads. That appears like 100 times in every single different Star Trek, either changed around or turned upside down or painted or with a lump on top or with two things on the side. They got their money's worth out of that and then some. However, the Romulan Warbird, the D'deridex-class ship, that also appeared numerous times as numerous other ships. Like what? I'll tell you. Notably, both the Mazarite ship from Star Trek Enterprise's Fallen Hero and the Illyrian starship from Damage are models of the Romulan Warbird. Now, yes, these were CGI models, you are correct, but they had the Warbird framework already in the database. Instead of sitting there and designing a completely new ship, they were told, just use the Warbird, just turn it around, change colours, it's not complicated. Oh, and this is also my favourite bit. One of the warp nacelles from a Romulan Warbird toy was repurposed by Deep Space Nine and used as like a medical scanner and an engineering tool on more than one occasion, which is I love. Number 5, Big Bird. And yes, as much as we like to point at things and go, hey, guess where else that cropped up, we also like to point at things and go, the size of this is mad and inconsistent. So when he originally drew the Romulan Warbird, Probert sat down and said, look, wouldn't it be really scary if this was twice the size of the Enterprise D? Now, because it's got that big hole in the middle, its mass is not twice the size of the Enterprise D, but it is physically twice as big. Wouldn't that be really scary? So we drew that up and they went, yeah, okay, good idea. But then in the finished VFX shot, his suggested framing of putting the Enterprise in front and the Warbird behind so you could see how much bigger it was had been changed, been flip reversed, so they were that way around. So you couldn't really get a sense of the scale. The Warbird was bigger, but it was also in the foreground, so you expected that, and it kind of looked, you couldn't really tell. And then throughout the Next Generation, they were just kind of inconsistently used from there. Like some shots they looked massive, some shots they just looked a little bit bigger, some shots they looked kind of the same size. There've been different deck schematics appearing on screen, some that say like there are over 40 decks, some that have said there's like 26 decks or something. And of course there was that time with the two decloaking Klingon birds of prey right behind them in the defector, that was where the birds of prey were now somehow like 3 times the size of the Warbird because of scale and depth and stuff like that. So they didn't know what they were doing, but it was supposed to be massive. Number 4, workplace of the enemy. Now, along with the Bird of Prey and the Vulture-class attack cruiser, the Warbird is one of the most frequently occurring alien ships on Star Trek, but unlike those two, it did not have an existing set that had been used for the original series or some of the movies. There was no, like, stock Romulan set for any of their ships at Paramount. The episodes Contagion, Face of the Enemy, and Deep Space Nine's The Dyer's Cast are the only episodes to feature scenes on a Romulan Warbird's bridge, and each episode featured newly constructed or redressed sets for the occasion. The most elaborate one appeared in the latter episode, a heavily modified and reworked set previously built for the aborted Star Trek Phase 2, and later used as the refit Enterprise bridge in Star Trek The Motion Picture. And also The Wrath of Khan, and also The Search for Spock, and also The Voyage Home, and also The Final Frontier. But as we've discussed in other videos, they changed that around loads in every single one anyway, so who knows. And then of course later on in Star Trek Nemesis, when they needed a couple of shots on the Valdor's bridge, they just used the Enterprise-E's bridge, but just made it green. Number 3, the Lost Warbird. This is sad. The D'deridex-class Romulan Warbird was only ever on TV. It never made the jump with the rest of the Next Generation assets, by which I mean the cast and the ship, to the movies. Never got a chance. But according to Ronald Moore himself, it was supposed to be in Star Trek Generations. They were going to make a movie-scale, movie-quality model of that to go in the film. See, the original opening of Star Trek Generations wasn't this champagne bottle slowly rotating through space. It was actually set at the Amargosa Observatory, which of course we do then get to in the first act. Basically, these two Starfleet officers, Beavis and Butthead style, his words, not mine, were just sitting about, picking their rings, doing absolutely nothing. Then this Warbird decloaks, attacks the station, the Romulans board, shoot everybody, but then the Enterprise under Picard turns up and saves the day. And that was the opening of that film. Quite different. However, Jerry Taylor read that and was like, an action set piece is not a particularly interesting way to open that part of the movie. We don't need to do that. Why don't we do something a bit more different? Why don't we have a ship at sea and Worf falls in and then Data pushes Crusher in as well? And somehow they looked at these two ideas and went, yeah, that one's better. Wait, no. Apparently, according to this, I have no idea if this is true, but Paul says it is, one of the original pitches was to have Picard in 10 forward pushing an egg with his nose. Which, I'm not gonna lie, sounds like a euphemism to me, and I don't want to know what for. Number 2, Avian Evolution. Now, when they needed a Romulan ship for Star Trek Nemesis, they decided the D'deridex-class Warbird, see I can't say it, that was just me doing a bit the whole video, wasn't needed. They were going to design something new and movie scale instead. The Valdor-class Warbird, including the Valdor and its friend, were completely designed from scratch. They incorporated elements of the original Warbird, being long, being swooping, having kind of the wing look, kind of having the bird head look, but also included elements that reminded the producers of the Bird of Prey, the Klingon Bird of Prey, because they really like that ship. They were also referred to as Warbirds, which was interesting, because they weren't Warbirds. They were a new ship, but unless that's just Warbirds is just a catch-all term for all like Romulan capital ships, which I quite like actually. They're all just Warbirds. They're all just The real Warbirds were the friends we made along the way. Actually, more to the point, in Picard, 3 separate Romulan ships have all been referred to either on the show or in the supporting material as Warbirds. So I think every Romulan ship's just called a Warbird now. You got the small green one, that was called a Warbird in the storyboards. You got the slightly bigger grey one, that was called a Warbird as well. Then you've just got the regular Warbird, which show up at the end, and the big fleet in what I still think is one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in Star Trek. It's just people talking about firing for 10 minutes, and then nobody firing. God, that was a season, wasn't it? Commodore O, God. That feels like a million years ago now. Number 1, staying power. You want to know how many episodes of Star Trek the Romulan Warbird is featured in? 17 in The Next Generation, 10 in Deep Space Nine, and a further 2 in Voyager, although I can't remember either of them if I'm being completely honest. That is some staying power for what was just a generic alien ship. And just as a testament to that staying power, to its enduring love and mythology, it's in Lower Decks. 32 years it has been in Star Trek franchise. The Romulan Warbird has been in for 32 years and is still going strong. Is that some kind of mad interesting fact you didn't know already? Probably not specifically, but it is worth pointing out. I think we've only done the Borg cube. Did we do the Klingon bird of prey? I can't even remember. My life has been so long, and there are such few iconic Star Trek ships outside of Federation designs that have held on for this long. Like, genuinely, it's those 3, isn't it? But that's everything we could think of about the Romulan Bird of Prey, and by we could think of, I mean Paul do good research, write article, and me speak words with mouth. But let us know if you've got any in the comments below, and of course, don't for how long's that been off? They trimmed out the warp nacelles a bit as well, which is alright, fine. You want to give it a bit of a redesign, a bit of a refresh, cool. It's your life, I suppose. But they also then started intercutting it with footage. Oh well, Chris, do your best. I'm sorry. Welcome to Trek Culture. We do this kind of stuff all the time. Like I said, such a small number of you are actually subscribed, so please feel free to write that balance by clicking the little button, and you can follow us on Twitter at Trek Culture. What, me? Where can you get me? At What Culture? No, wait, at Adam Cleary, Clery. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Dolphin series, and we will do a dolphin noise. Nah, it's crap. Bye.